I've been to a lot of wild parties. LA has a reputation for that. But what happened at Diddy's mansion wasn't just a party, it was something else. Something I was never supposed to walk away from. And I haven't. Not really. I've always been the guy who says yes. The one you call when you need backup for a night that might get out of hand. Spring break in LA? That was supposed to be my element. Cam, Dre, and I were fresh out of our last season. College athletes with nowhere to be and everything to prove. I wasn't just looking for a party. I was chasing something. Chaos, thrill, movement. The kind of high you don't get from substances, just energy. We were three nobodies who walked like we belonged in VIP. And most of the time, that was enough. That night, we ended up at a rooftop lounge off Sunset. Everything smelled like expensive cologne, rooftop smoke, and decisions people would regret in the morning. But we weren't thinking about the morning. We were thinking about the now. That's when he showed up. Not a promoter, not a celebrity, just a man. Mid-50s maybe. Skin too smooth, suit too clean. Eyes that didn't blink enough. He didn't ask who we were. He didn't care, okay? Just slid over and handed me a card. Matte black, no name. Just an address, printed in silver that shimmered like heat waves. You ever been to a real party? He asked. I didn't look at Cam. Didn't check with Dre. I just smiled and said, lead the way. The Uber ride was dead silent. Even the driver didn't speak. He just followed the pin on the GPS, winding up roads that got darker and narrower with each turn. By the time we reached the gate, I couldn't see any stars, just the glow of the house perched above us like a god's throne. The gate opened without him pressing anything. No intercom, no code, just opened. That should have been the first sign. But I was too hyped, too curious. The mansion was carved from white marble, towering, sleek, cold in a way that made the hairs on my arms rise. It didn't feel like someone's home. It felt like something was waiting for us. I expected music. I expected noise. But when we stepped in, the silence hit harder than any bass drop. The kind of silence that wraps around you, tightens, makes you check if you're really awake. The air didn't move. The light was dim, but everything glowed. Not warmly, like a home, but sterile, like a museum. The people inside weren't dancing. They weren't mingling. They whispered, but not to each other. They stood in corners, lounged on untouched furniture, whispered into the space around them like the house itself was listening. Their faces were beautiful, too beautiful. Skin like porcelain, expressions frozen in soft smirks and slow blinks. Eyes like TV static, present but not alive. A man in black handed me a drink. No words, just the glass, gold liquid. It didn't swirl, it moved, thick, heavy, almost resisting gravity. I downed it. Too sweet, too smooth, and the warmth hit my chest like a wave. That's when the edges of the world got weird. I was starting to smile without meaning to. Not because I felt happy, but because I couldn't feel anything else. My body was reacting on its own. Euphoric, floaty. But my thoughts had taken a step back, like they were watching me from across the room. And that's when she appeared. She wasn't the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. No, she was something else entirely. She looked like the idea of a woman. Not makeup, not angles, just complete. Her dress was red, deep, blood-red silk that caught the light like it had a heartbeat. Her skin glowed like it had been kissed by fire, and she walked through the room like gravity didn't touch her. I couldn't move. The whispers quieted as she walked. The air changed. Even the temperature shifted. The low hum that passed for music changed key when she came near, like the house itself acknowledged her presence. She didn't ask my name, didn't offer hers, just stared at me with those eyes that didn't blink. And then, slowly, she began to move. She didn't ask me to dance. She just moved. And my body followed like I was being played like an instrument. She leaned in and licked my neck. Not playfully. Not like a tease. Like possession. Like she was claiming something. She took my hand and led me through the mansion. We passed through rooms glowing gold, past people who looked like props. Some were talking, some were laughing, some were crying quietly to themselves. But none of it registered. Not with her leading me. I was weightless, floating behind her, trying to keep my feet on the ground. Then we stopped at the mirror, floor to ceiling. Not just reflective, alive. I looked in and saw myself, just myself. She was standing right next to me, but in the reflection, I was alone. My expression was blank, like I wasn't in my own body. Then she walked forward, straight into the mirror. It shimmered like water and pulled me in. Halfway through, I heard it. A voice. Yo. I turned. There was a guy in a hoodie at the edge of the hallway. Not one of the perfect guests. He looked tired, real, like someone who hadn't slept in days. I'd seen him earlier, standing alone by a window. Now he was watching me. Don't go in there, he said. Calm, serious. Keep your man card, no matter what they offer. I blinked. What? He stepped forward. They don't take it from you all at once. They let you give it away, piece by piece. He looked at the woman in red. That's not temptation, he said. That's the receipt. Before I could speak, she leaned in and whispered something in my ear. Her voice poured into my skull like syrup. I didn't hear words, just warmth, just pressure, just surrender. I turned back to the man, but he was gone. So I followed her through the mirror. On the other side, it wasn't cold anymore. It was thick, like the air had weight, like breathing it in meant becoming part of it. The walls were velvet, curved, no sharp edges. The lights were green, soft, almost biological. And the music was strange. Not pop, not electronic. Something old, folksy. Irish, maybe. The kind of music you hear in a pub full of ghosts. She drifted barefoot across the floor and pulled a bottle from a built-in shelf, poured me a clear drink. The bottle was sweating. She held it out to me like it was sacred. I took it, smelled sharp, drank, and it tasted like forgetting. Burned like bleach, sat in my stomach like a secret. I coughed, eyes watering, then smiled. Y'all got anything stronger? She smiled. This time, there was no seduction in it. No tease, just satisfaction. Like I just agreed to something. Like the ritual had started, and I didn't even know the rules. She took my hand again. I didn't resist. My body felt light, but my head was heavy, like I'd sunk underwater and forgot to come up for air. We slipped out of the green room and into a hallway I swear hadn't existed before. It was darker here, narrower. The lights weren't soft anymore. They pulsed red, like blood flowing through veins just under the surface. With every step, the air got thinner. Not colder, just wrong. Like I was breathing in something not meant for lungs. I turned to glance back. The green room was gone. Just darkness behind me, a hallway that had swallowed itself. At the end stood a door. Matte black, not gold or ornate like the rest of the house. Just black with a red dot at the center, pulsing like it was keeping rhythm with my heart. She stopped, kissed my cheek, and whispered something that made my ears ring. "He's ready?" The door opened. The room beyond wasn't just different. It was something else entirely. Like stepping out of a dream and into a place where the rules of time didn't apply. The walls were black mirror and obsidian, shimmering with low embedded lights that felt more like stars buried beneath glass. One wall was lined with waveform monitors, flickering in silence, like sound captured in the middle of a scream. And in the center of it all stood Diddy. He wore no chains, no jewelry, just black, still, calm, like he'd been waiting for me, not as a guest, but as something else. "Tyrese," he said, "you got rhythm in your blood. I saw it the second you walked in." I tried to speak. My throat was dry. My tongue didn't move right. "Music," he continued, walking slowly toward me, "was the first language. Before speech, before nations, before God, there was rhythm, vibration." He raised his arm slightly, gesturing to the air like a preacher. "It connects people, moves them, makes them obey, makes them open." He stepped aside and pointed toward the center of the room. That's when I saw the chamber. Glass, wires, symbols etched into the frame, glowing red. Inside, something stood, tall, thin. Its skin was pale gray, almost translucent, like smoke wrapped around bone. Its eyes were closed. Its chest moved, slowly, steadily. It wasn't dead. It was waiting. Diddy walked over to a small table and picked up a glass. Inside was a liquid thicker than oil and darker than blood. It shimmered, not beautifully, but like it didn't want to be held. "This," he said, handing it to me, "is from him. One drop, and the game changes forever." As he said it, I saw them. People lined along the edges of the chamber, some on their knees, some crying. One man in a designer coat was face down, fists clenched. A woman in red lace swayed, lost in a trance. They weren't there for the music. They were worshiping something. And it wasn't Diddy. I looked down at the glass in my hand. It pulsed, like it had a heartbeat, like it knew me. A pressure pushed into my chest. Not a hand, not a sound, just a weight. The thing in the chamber opened its eyes. Red. No whites, no pupils, just red. And everything inside me broke. My vision blurred. I couldn't breathe. My body shook, but I couldn't move. My soul felt like it had been lifted up and handed over, like a gift I hadn't meant to give. I started crying without even realizing it, tears falling hot and steady down my face. I don't know how long I stood there. Then I whispered, "God, if you're still with me, give me a way out." And like it was scripted, Cam's voice cut through it all. Tyrese! Not muffled, not distant, loud, real, human. The spell cracked. The weight lifted just enough. Diddy looked at me, disappointed, calm. "You sure?" he asked. I didn't answer. I dropped the glass. It shattered, and I swear it bled. The thing in the chamber twitched, turned. A shiver ran through the room. I turned and ran. But I wasn't the only one who saw behind the curtain. There was someone else there that night, hired to protect an artist who was on the rise. A young rapper with raw talent and big dreams. We'll call him Wayne. The bodyguard, just a guy doing his job. He'd done VIP gigs before. Never expected this one to be any different. Until Wayne got that white envelope. Diddy's party. The kind of invitation you don't turn down. Wayne was hype. The bodyguard? He'd heard stories, but he kept his mouth shut. His job wasn't to question, just to follow, watch, protect. The mansion was lit when they arrived, on the outside anyway. Inside, the vibes shifted quickly. At first it was glam. Music, networking, big smiles, and bigger egos. Wayne was working the room full of charm and swagger. But the bodyguard noticed something. A door, tucked behind a curtain. Plain wood, not like the rest of the estate. And people were disappearing through it. Not guests, not waitstaff. People with small red cards and stiff faces. He waited until Wayne was busy, laughing it up with an older man in a tailored suit. Then he slipped through. The hallway behind the door was lined in heavy drapes. Cold, quiet. At the end, a staircase, and beyond that, another door, dark wood. Same red symbol carved into its surface like a warning. He hesitated, then opened it. The room inside was massive, walls covered in jagged, glowing symbols. A low chant filled the space, rhythmic and unnatural. The air reeked of incense and blood. At the center, an altar, stained, ancient. Wayne stood at its edge, eyes wide, nervous. Diddy stood beside him, shirtless, his body slick with dark oil. Symbols painted on his arms, his chest, his face. "This is the vessel," he said. "Through him, we summon the architect." The masked figures surrounding the altar raised their hands. The chanting swelled. The light dimmed and flared like the walls were alive. Diddy placed both hands on Wayne's chest. Wayne cried out. The air rippled, his back arched, his skin bulged and twisted like something inside was waking up. The shadows on the wall began to move, faces, mouths open in silent screams. And then it emerged. From Wayne's body, a massive, smoky shape. The architect. It towered over them, red eyes burning like coals, and it looked straight at the bodyguard. The architect didn't just look at him, it saw through him. The bodyguard felt it crawl into his mind, burrow deep into places he thought were sealed off. Memories, doubts, regrets. The thing twisted them, rewrote them, stripped them bare. Wayne's body hit the ground hard. For a moment, it looked like it was over. He lay there trembling, pale and limp. But the ritual wasn't done. Dark tendrils of shadow rose from the altar and wrapped around him, pulled him up like a puppet with no strings. His chest heaved. His hands clawed at the stone floor. His skin began to stretch and pulse, symbols surfacing from beneath like they were etched into his bones. The masked figures began chanting faster, louder. The room felt like it was spinning, vibrating with unnatural energy. The symbols on the walls burned brighter, throwing moving shadows that danced across Wayne's body as he convulsed again. And then he screamed. But it wasn't a human scream. It was guttural, twisted, like something ancient being torn into the world. The architect hovered over him, merging with him. Not metaphorically, literally. Shadows slipped into his mouth, his eyes, his pores. Piece by piece, Wayne stopped being Wayne. His face changed, his body warped. By the time it was over, what stood on the altar wasn't the boy with the golden voice. It was something else, blank-eyed, marked, gone. The chanting stopped. The architect stood tall, alive, fully formed, fully fed. And every single person in that room fell to their knees. Except the bodyguard. He should have done something. Anything. But what can you do when God shows up and it isn't the one you prayed to? He ran. He didn't look back. Pushed past the heavy door. Charged up the staircase like his life depended on it. Every step felt like dragging himself through wet cement. Behind him, the hum of the architect's presence grew louder, like it knew he was trying to leave, like it wanted him to remember. He burst through the final door and landed back into the party. Everything was normal, or pretending to be. Laughter, glasses clinking, guests posing for selfies, influencers holding flutes of champagne and whispering about streaming deals and brand launches. No one looked concerned. No one even noticed him, until they did. One by one, their heads turned. Blank smiles, still faces. They knew. They all knew, and none of them cared. He shoved his way through the crowd, knocking over a tray of drinks. A server watched him go, expressionless, like he was watching a rerun. Outside, the cold hit him like a slap. The black SUV was still there, the driver leaning on the hood with a cigarette in his mouth. He saw the panic, stood up straight. "You good?" "Drive," he said, breathless. "What about your... just drive." The SUV peeled off down the driveway. The mansion vanished in the rearview mirror, but something told him to look back. So he did. Through the trees, through the dark, through the distance, he saw it. Not the house, not the party, the architect. Its red eyes glowed like twin suns, watching. And in front of it was Wayne. Naked, covered in those same jagged symbols. His body gray and distorted, his face slack, but his eyes, they were red now too, faint but burning. And he was looking directly at the SUV. Not moving, not chasing, just watching. The driver kept his eyes on the road, but the bodyguard couldn't tear his gaze away from the mirror. He knew, deep down, that what he'd seen wasn't over. That this wasn't just a bad night or a freak event. This was something ancient, ongoing. A ritual older than Hollywood, bigger than music. It wasn't about Diddy. Diddy was just the priest. The mansion was the church. The architect was the god. And Wayne? He was the offering. You're probably wondering why he never used Wayne's real name. why he still doesn't. Why he tells this story in pieces, in secret. 'Cause people are listening. Always. The kind of people who don't send warnings. Just disappearances. And he's not trying to be next.